The evening sun burned orange over the dusty town of Black Creek. Horses stomped beside wooden posts, while tired cowboys drifted in and out of the saloon doors. Music played faintly inside, mixed with drunken laughter. Elias Carter sat alone on his horse near the edge of town. The lonely rancher had spent most of his life working under endless skies and sleeping beside campfires. His face was rough from years of wind and hardship, but his eyes still carried kindness. As he tied his horse near the saloon, shouting suddenly erupted inside. "You useless girl!" A drunken man roared. A young woman stumbled through the swinging doors and fell hard into the dirt. Her dark brown hair covered part of her face. A bruise marked her cheek. The drunk man stepped out after her with a whiskey bottle in his hand. "I ought to leave you for the wolves," he barked. The girl didn't answer. People nearby only looked away. "She can't hear a thing," one man muttered. "Poor deaf girl." Elias watched quietly. Something inside him tightened. The drunk grabbed the girl by the arm so roughly she cried out silently. Without hesitation, Elias stepped forward. "That's enough." The drunk father sneered. "Mind your business, rancher." Elias's voice turned cold. "You touch her again and you'll regret it." For a long moment, the street went silent except for the wind. Finally, the drunk shoved the girl away. "Take her then. She's nothing but trouble." The girl looked down at the dirt, ashamed. Elias slowly removed his coat and placed it over her shoulders. "It's cold tonight," he said gently. Her frightened eyes lifted toward him. For the first time in years, Elias felt his lonely heart move. The ride to Elias's ranch was long and quiet. Moonlight stretched across the mountains while coyotes howled in the distance. The girl sat silently behind him on the horse, holding carefully to his coat. When they finally reached the ranch house, lantern light glowed warmly through the windows. Elias helped her down gently. "You can stay here until you're safe," he said slowly, unsure she could read his lips. She nodded softly. Inside, the ranch smelled of cedarwood and coffee. It was simple but warm. Elias placed food on the table, while the girl sat quietly, studying every movement carefully. "You got a name?" he asked. After a pause, she picked up a small piece of paper and wrote, "Clara." Elias smiled faintly. "I'm Elias." Clara gave the smallest smile back. Over the next few days, silence filled the ranch peacefully. Elias worked long hours repairing fences and caring for horses, while Clara cleaned the house, cooked meals, and slowly brought warmth back into the lonely home. One afternoon, Elias found her standing near the horses. The golden sunlight touched her face while she gently brushed one of the mares. "You're good with animals," he said. Clara turned toward him quickly, almost too quickly. Elias noticed it. He spoke again, softer this time. "They trust you." A strange look crossed her face before she lowered her eyes. That night, during dinner, thunder rolled outside as rain struck the windows. Clara suddenly flinched. Elias stared at her. She slowly realized what she had done, because she had reacted before seeing the lightning, before seeing anything at all. A small seed of doubt entered Elias's mind. Days passed, and the ranch slowly changed. There was laughter now, warm meals, soft footsteps inside the house. Clara brought life back into places Elias thought had died long ago. One evening, they sat beside a campfire outside the barn. The mountains stood dark against the stars, while sparks drifted into the cold night air. Elias handed Clara a cup of coffee. She wrapped both hands around it. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said quietly. Her eyes softened. For a while, they simply listened to the crackling fire. Then Elias spoke again. "My wife died 5 years ago." Clara looked at him carefully. "She got sick during winter." His jaw tightened. "After that, this place just became quiet." Clara slowly reached out and touched his hand. The gentle touch surprised him. "You know," Elias said with a faint smile, "you're the first person who's made this ranch feel alive again." Clara looked away, emotional. Then Elias noticed something strange again. A horse suddenly neighed loudly from the barn behind them. Clara turned immediately toward the sound. Not toward the movement, toward the sound. Elias said nothing. But the truth was beginning to grow heavier in his heart. The storm arrived after midnight. Heavy rain pounded the ranch while fierce wind rattled the windows. Elias woke suddenly when he heard voices outside. He grabbed his lantern and stepped into the storm. Inside the barn, he froze. Clara stood near the horses, speaking. "I can't stay forever," she whispered shakily to herself. "He'll hate me if he finds out." Elias's chest tightened. Clara slowly turned and gasped when she saw him standing there. For several seconds, neither of them moved. "You can hear," Elias finally said quietly. Tears filled Clara's eyes. "Yes." The words shattered the silence between them. Elias looked hurt more than angry. "Why?" Clara's hands trembled. "My father," she whispered. "When people believed I was deaf, they stopped asking questions. Men stopped bothering me. It was the only way I felt safe." Rain thundered against the barn roof. "I never meant to hurt you," she cried softly. "I was afraid." Elias stepped back slowly. "You should have trusted me." Clara's tears fell harder. "I wanted to." But Elias turned and walked back into the storm. And for the first time since arriving at the ranch, Clara felt completely alone. The next morning, silence returned to the ranch. Painful silence. Elias barely spoke while saddling his horse. Clara stood near the porch, her eyes red from crying. "I'll leave," she said quietly. Elias paused but didn't answer. Clara packed her small bag and walked away from the ranch beneath gray skies. Hours later, the storm worsened. Rain flooded the nearby river crossing. Elias worked inside the barn when he suddenly realized Clara would have to cross the river road. Fear hit him instantly. He jumped onto his horse and rode hard through the rain. "Clara!" he shouted into the storm. Near the river bank, he spotted her. Her horse slipped in the muddy water, throwing her into the raging river. "Elias!" she screamed. Without hesitation, he rode directly into the flood. The freezing current nearly dragged both of them away. Finally, Elias grabbed Clara tightly and pulled her onto the rocks beside the river. Both of them collapsed, soaked and breathless. Clara clung to him, trembling. "I thought I lost you," Elias whispered. She burst into tears against his chest. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'm so sorry." Elias held her tightly while rain poured around them. At that moment, he realized something important. The lie hurt him, but losing her would hurt far worse. That night, the storm finally passed. A warm fire glowed inside the ranch house while Clara sat wrapped in blankets. Elias quietly handed her a cup of coffee. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Clara looked at him with tearful eyes. "You were the first man who ever protected me without wanting something in return." Elias sat beside her. "You don't have to pretend anymore," he said softly. Clara nodded slowly. "My father used to sell me to men whenever he needed money," she whispered painfully. "Pretending to be deaf made people uncomfortable. They left me alone." Elias's face darkened with anger and sadness. "You survived the only way you could."
Now, and I love
Clara
you.
looked down. "But I lied to you." Elias gently lifted her chin. "Maybe." He smiled faintly. "But I saw the real you long before tonight." Tears filled her eyes again. "I love you, Clara." The words were quiet but powerful. Clara covered her mouth as emotion overwhelmed her. "You really mean that?" Elias nodded. "With everything I have left." Clara leaned forward slowly and kissed him softly beside the fire, while the wind faded outside. And for the first time in many years, neither of them felt alone. Spring arrived softly across the valley. Wildflowers bloomed beside the ranch fences, while golden sunlight rolled across the hills. The lonely ranch no longer felt empty. Laughter echoed through the house. Horses ran freely through green fields. Music sometimes drifted from the open windows while Clara cooked breakfast inside. One peaceful evening, Elias and Clara sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Elias wrapped an arm gently around her shoulders. "You still thinking about leaving someday?" he teased softly. Clara smiled warmly. "No," she whispered. "I think I finally found home." The wind moved gently through her hair while Elias looked at her with quiet love. After years of loneliness, pain, and silence, two broken hearts had found peace beneath the endless western sky. And as the sun disappeared beyond the mountains, Clara rested her head against Elias's shoulder, knowing she would never have to pretend again.